What's going on, everybody? My name is Tyler, and with the NFL playoffs getting underway this weekend, I'm recording this on Friday, January 3rd, for context, I decided to start a new series, if you will, where I rank the top 10 NFL players by position. Similar to my top 10 NBA players by position videos, I'm not solely going off their stats from this past season. I'm also looking at their careers as a whole, their injury history, and whether or not they have progressed or regressed in recent years. And if I were building a team, would I want these guys starting for me? So in this video, we are going to be talking about the quarterbacks, the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, in my opinion. So without further ado, let's get it started. Coming in at number 10, we have Jimmy Garoppolo. After having many people questioning whether or not he was worth the 5-year, $137.5 million contract he signed with the 49ers after just 6 games, then tearing his ACL 3 games into last season, and in a slow start this past preseason, Garoppolo has really proved the doubters wrong this season with his play, throwing for nearly 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions with a completion percentage of 69.1. There are a few reasons, though, why I don't have him higher, however. The first reason is he a product of the system? I'm not really sure. Kyle Shanahan has a great system he's put into place in the San Francisco offense, and we've seen it with Jared Goff and Sean McVay's system. Once teams have started to figure out that system, Goff has struggled. Will the same be the case for Jimmy G? The second reason is I just want to see more. This is the first full season we've seen Garoppolo as a starter, so I really don't know if this is just a one-time season thing, and just because since no one has seen him really play a full season at quarterback, teams were not expecting the level of play, or is this something that could be a product for many years down the road? Because Garoppolo is still fairly young. He's got a lot more football ahead of him, in my opinion. The third reason is that the 49ers defense this past season was really good, one of the best ever in NFL history. And because of that, the Niners offense, aside from the Saints game, didn't have to put up huge numbers. They did for the most part, but they really didn't have to. So I want to see if the Niners are in more close games, does that impact Garoppolo's play at all? It did perform really well in that Saints game, but that was a shootout type game. I'm talking about a low, grinded out type game. And number 4, the same can be said about the Niners rushing game. There were multiple games throughout the season. The one I always think back to is that Cleveland Browns game on Monday Night Football, where the rushing game really carried the 49ers offense and not the passing game. And that was present in multiple games this season, so it kind of bailed Garoppolo out. So all those being said, however, Garoppolo has started to play to the level that many expected of him, and the future is very, very bright for him and the 49ers. At number 9, we have Tom Brady, the guy who wanted Jimmy G traded off the Patriots over fear that Garoppolo was going to replace him eventually. Brady did not have his greatest of seasons this past year. The decline, I think, has finally started to happen for Brady. Compared to his last season to this season, Brady's numbers have decreased across the major passing stats, throwing for 298 fewer yards, 5 less touchdowns, completing 60.8% of passes versus 65.8%, but while throwing 43 more pass attempts compared to last. So Brady's been asked to throw the ball more, and he has performed worst across multiple categories. Brady did also throw 3 fewer interceptions this season compared to last, but he threw 8 interceptions in total this season. In this season, it seems like he's thrown more interceptions that have caused that came at moments during the game, that derailed the Patriots' chances of winning. For example, in that Week 17 game at home against Miami, the Patriots needed to win this game to get a first-round bye. Brady throws a pick 6 in the second quarter to Eric Rowe that put the Dolphins up 10-0, giving Miami hope that they actually could win that game, which they ended up going on to do. Granted, it did come down to the end. Ryan Fitzpatrick had a remarkable fourth-quarter drive to give the Dolphins the win. But without that pick 6, the Dolphins were down 2 scores. They would not have won that game. And ultimately, New England dropped to the 3 seed in the AFC, forcing them to play on Wild Card Weekend. Also, the reason why Brady isn't higher on this list is because he's 42 years old. I really don't know how many more years left in the tank he has. He says he wants to play to 45, but given the decline we started to see from him, I don't really know if that's in the cards, at least playing high-quality football. He is arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But this isn't 2010. This is 2020. So right now, if you're asking me if I want Brady on my team, sure, I would love to have him, but he's not going to be my first choice. He's not going to be my second, my third, my fourth, my fifth, my sixth, my seventh, or my eighth. He is my 9th choice, in my opinion, right now. And even then, that's not a total guarantee, because there are some guys that underperformed this past season or were injured, like a Ben Roethlisberger or a Baker Mayfield, who maybe, depending on the day, I might take over Brady. But as of right now, I would say Brady is my number 9 quarterback in the NFL right now, strictly because he's earned it over his career. He's played well his entire career. But as of right now, I have it numbered. At number 8, we have Kirk Cousins. Let me start off by saying I don't think Cousins is a better quarterback than Brady. But if you remember the criteria I listed out, one of the things was if I was starting my team, who would I want? And if I was starting a team today, I would take Cousins over Brady strictly because Cousins is 11 years younger. And in this season alone, Cousins put up similar or better stats to that of TB12. I mean, Cousins is 31 years of age. He's not a super young guy, but he's had enough experience in the NFL right now where if I needed someone to plug in and start, I can rely on him, I feel like. He proved that to me this season. It was a slow start for Cousins in the Vikings offense this season, and many people thought he wasn't worth the 3-year contract, fully guaranteed deal he received. But that's partially due to the fact he wasn't on the same page with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. But eventually something clicked, they turned things around, and Minnesota was able to make the playoffs as the number 6 seed in the NFC. There was a moment also that they could have beaten out the Packers for the NFC North title. It just wasn't meant to be. Cousins' passing numbers were down from his first season as a Viking, but I'm going to attribute that to the fact that the rushing game and Dalvin Cook, who was healthy for the greater portion of this year and balled out. Cook was unstoppable the first half of the season, first 10 games of the season, more or less. And the reason why I don't have him higher is similar to the next guy on this list, is that Cousins has yet to prove it to me in the playoffs. Cousins has only one playoff start in his career. That was in 2015 as a quarterback of the Redskins. So maybe if he plays well this postseason, I would update it and say, oh yeah, Cousins is number 7, maybe number 6. But right now, I need Cousins to prove to me that he is a viable playoff starting quarterback. He's proven to me in the regular season. This year was the birth of primetime Kirk Cousins. Like in that game against Dallas, we saw that Kirk Cousins could play in primetime, where in the past, he proved to us he wasn't. I think now he needs to prove it on a big stage. He doesn't have to win a Super Bowl this year. He's not going to win a Super Bowl this year. The NFC is loaded. Vikings, or the Saints, the Packers, the Niners, the Seahawks are all, I think, better teams than the Vikings. But I think if Cousins plays well week 1 against the Saints, maybe gets a win or keeps things close, you can make the argument that he moves up in the list. But as of right now, I have Kirk Cousins as my number 8 quarterback in the NFL. At number 7, I have Carson Wentz. Despite the injury history of the past 2 seasons, Wentz has really impressed me. To start off the year, a lot of people thought that the Eagles should have not let Nick Foles walk in free agency and instead tried to trade Wentz because Foles had led the Eagles to playoff runs in each of the last 2 seasons. First with the Super Bowl, and then the divisional round loss to the Saints, where the Eagles were in it until the very end, barring a Alshon Jeffrey tipping the ball and allowing the Saints to intercept it. And Wentz, he had been hurt like the last 2 postseasons, like I said. But although all of that, Wentz led the Eagles back to the playoffs, winning the NFC East, and although it was a pillow fight between the Eagles and the Cowboys for the NFC East title, Wentz was able to win in a crucial Week 16 game at home against Dallas, where he completed 31 of 40 passes, threw for 319 yards, and a touchdown, which gave Philly the win. That one touchdown, it was a 17-9 game. Eagles don't score that touchdown. It's a 10-9 game and a whole different thing. It could have been a much closer game, and Dallas could have won that game. And Wentz has done all this, by the way, throwing for over 4,000 yards, and I believe it was over 25 touchdowns, maybe over 30 touchdowns, so I'm not mistaken. I don't have it written down. With injuries to his top 3 wide receivers for the majority of the season, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, and Deshaun Jackson. Zach Ertz has been dealing with injuries. He was out last week and was not 100% throughout the entire season. The offensive line has seen its fair share of injuries. Brandon Brooks is now out for the season with a shoulder injury. Lane Johnson's been battling injuries. Jason Peters. The only healthy guy on that offensive line for the most part has been Jason Kelce at center. And after that, though, it's been very unhealthy. The running game, Jordan Howard has been in and out of the lineup with injury, and Wentz has still performed although all of that has happened. But what I want to see with Wentz is now can he do in the playoffs? Similar to Cousins, I just feel like that Wentz this is now his first taste in the playoffs. The pressure could be a little too bright for Wentz in his first game against Seattle, but he might shine. He's at home. He has a huge opportunity, and I think he has the skills to perform really well in the postseason. Maybe not this year, but in years to come as the leader of the Philadelphia Eagles. And the reason why I also have Wentz ahead of Cousins is because I feel that he has more potential than Cousins. He's a brighter future. Wentz is younger. So if I'm starting a team right now, as a Giants fan, I hate to say it, but I'd rather have Wentz because I think I have more of a opportunity to build around Wentz. Cousins, we kind of know we have. Wentz, I'm not 100% sure. He's shown flashes, but I think there's greater opportunity for greatness in Carson Wentz right now than there is for Kirk Cousins. So Wentz, number 7 quarterback in the NFL at this very moment. At number 6, we have Drew Brees. And it pains me to say because I love Drew Brees' game. He is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL just to watch. But I have to put him at number 6 because he's 40 years of age. Don't get me wrong. Brees is still balling, in my opinion. He did miss 5.5 games due to a freak hand injury, but still played solid, threw for 2,979 yards, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and had a QBR of 71.8, ranking him 26th, tied for 5th, tied for 1st, and 3rd in each category, respectively, among qualified quarterbacks. He also, in the process of this season, became the NFL's all-time leader in passing touchdowns, and had he not missed those 5.5 games, he could have a much greater lead right now over Tom Brady. Also, he and New Orleans have been primed for a deep postseason run, in my opinion, barring a major injury to their team. Similar to Brady, however, I just don't know how much Brees has left in the tank. He's entered his 40s, and we've seen with Brady, the numbers will most likely start to slip with Brees. And although Brees has a much better surrounding cast around it with Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Jared Cook, if he's able to continue his level of play, if I was a general manager, I'm going to want someone younger. And all the guys on this list, I would go are younger than Brees by far. So I would go with age over experience in this case. And similar to Brady as well, this isn't 2010 anymore. We're in 2020. 10 years ago, Brees would probably be number 4 on my list behind Peyton Manning, Brady, and Aaron Rodgers. Not necessarily in that order, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's just, we're 10 years down the road. Brees is still really, really good. And for right now, I do think Brees, in my opinion, has better options. He's a better option than a lot of NFL starting quarterbacks. But given the guys ahead of him, he is older than all of them, has fewer years left in the NFL, most likely. There could be an Andrew Luck type freak thing. And also, I just feel like the guys ahead of him are better at this current point where they are versus where Brees is. So right now, I have to put Drew Brees at number 6. I would love to put him higher. I want to see him win another Super Bowl. But I just can't right now because of the landscape of the NFL quarterback. So Brees at number 6 on my list right now. At number 5, we have Shaun Watson. Watson is really starting to come into his own as an NFL quarterback. If you saw my wildcard weekend preview video, I mentioned that Watson did regress slightly from year 2 to year 3. He threw for over 3,800 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, but had multiple moments during the season that I mentioned that had Watson not made a play, the Texans would not be AFC South champs. They might not even have been in the playoffs because the Colts were coming up behind the Texans' tail at one point. The Titans were in contention for the AFC South until week 16. And one example, as I mentioned in that video, was in a game against Oakland where Watson got kicked in the eye, thought he lost his eyeball, and still threw a touchdown on that play, and the Texans went on to win that game. Watson has only played in one postseason game and is still a young NFL career. That was last season against the Colts, where Watson completed 59.2% of his passes for 235 yards and 1 touchdown and 1 interception in a 21-7 loss at home. That's got to change. I think if Watson wants to be higher, he has to perform in the postseason. He can't just be a regular season quarterback. But he has a bright future ahead of him and a nice core around him. I feel barring injury. He had that torn ACL in his rookie season. Hopefully that is it for major injuries in Watson's career. I don't want to see another Andrew Luck thing. It sucks Andrew Luck was out of the league so young because of injury. Watson, I hope that's not the same case for him because he is a mobile guy. He gets hit a lot, similar to Andrew Luck early on in his career. The offensive line around Watson is not the greatest. He takes a lot of hits, but if they could stay healthy, Watson and the Texans could run the AFC South for the next 5 to 6 years and maybe even more. That's how good Deshaun Watson is at quarterback. So I have him at number 5 on my. At number 4, we have Russell Wilson. And at age 31, Wilson has been stellar once again this season. He threw for 4,110 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, and had a QBR of 69.8. Good enough for 6th, 3rd, tied for 3rd, and 6th among qualified quarterbacks in each category, respectively, keeping himself in the MVP conversation for the greater part of the season. Since his first year in the NFL, Wilson has had success in the playoffs. He only missed the playoffs once in 8 seasons, made it to the Super Bowl in 2012 and 2013 and 2014. Those were his second and third seasons, mind you, and won the Super Bowl in his first appearance back in 2013. And as the Seahawks roster has seen some turnover, Wilson has lost Marshawn Lynch to retirement in 2015, although now he's back at age 35. But how great is he going to be? We really don't know. He's lost Doug Baldwin because he was forced to retire after this past season. Jermaine Kearse left the team a few years ago. Jimmy Graham experiment really didn't pan out. The offensive line has been shuffled a lot during Wilson's career, but he has remained steady his entire career, Wilson has. And he's been consistently a top 10, top 15 quarterback for the entirety of his career without a doubt. He's arguably the best dual-threat quarterback in the NFL since he entered. I guess now Lamar Jackson might take that title away from him, but up until this past season, I think Wilson was the best dual-threat quarterback in the NFL. Maybe Cam Newton had an argument, but I would still go with Wilson in my opinion. And he's been keeping defenses honest by making plays with both his arm and his legs. And it was hard for me not to put Russ into the top 3, but I feel that at this moment, 4 is the best spot because, and you'll see once I unveil my top 3, the guys ahead of him, 2 of them are younger than Russ. One of them is just arguably one of the best quarterbacks of the 2000s by far, ever since 2000. So, yeah, I have to put Russell Wilson at number 4 right now. I think he's still got a lot of football left. He's only 31. If this trend continues of quarterbacks playing into their 40s, Russ has got another 9-10 years at least, one would think, barring, like I said, a major injury. That's the key thing with any quarterback is barring injury. Because you never know. An injury happens, that ruins the entire guy's career possibly. But Wilson, I'll have him at number 4. And I'm actually pretty confident about that. And yeah, Russell Wilson, number 4. At number 3, we have Aaron Rodgers. And I will admit, at the start of the season, I thought this was going to be the end, or the beginning of the end, for Aaron Rodgers. His favorite weapons from years past were gone, such as Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. They didn't really have a tight end. The running game was a huge question mark in Green Bay because no one thought Aaron Jones was going to break out this season. Devontae Adams had proved himself to be a top talent at wide receiver in the NFL, but he had an injury history, missing multiple games in multiple past years. And at entering his age 36 season, Rodgers would have to learn an entirely new offensive scheme under new head coach Matt LaFleur after years in the Mike McCarthy system. But Rodgers proved me wrong, though. With a group of receivers that was without Adams for 4 games this season entirely and wasn't really himself for when he was on the field, Rodgers still threw for over 4,000 yards, 4,002 to be exact, 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, completing 62% of his passes. And Rodgers ultimately led Green Bay to the top of the NFC North, getting the number 2 seed in the NFC and a first-round bye. And they are serious Super Bowl contenders, in my opinion. I will go on to continue my NFL playoffs preview, and if the Packers make it to the NFC Championship in the Super Bowl, it's going to be hard for me to pick against them, depending on who they play, because they are that good of a team. The reason why I don't have Rodgers higher is because the 2 guys ahead of him on this list, whom you probably have already guessed who they are just 2 guys who are younger than Rodgers, have greater futures than Rodgers. All that being said, though, I seriously think that Rodgers can still put up good numbers for the next 5 to 6 years, at least, given what we've seen out of Brady, Brees, or even the guy who Rodgers replaced in Green Bay and Brett Favre when he crossed into his 40s. Because Rodgers is only 36 right now. He's got a good future ahead of him if this LaFleur offense continues to flourish. So Aaron Rodgers at number 3. At number 2, we have Lamar Jackson. Jackson has really taken a jump from his first to his second year. We knew how good he was as a runner and with his legs, but he's really proven how good he is as a passer, throwing for over 3,100 yards, an NFL leading 36 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. He also had the highest QBR among qualified quarterbacks with 81.7. In his first game this season, Jackson threw for 5 touchdowns, 324 yards, and no interceptions against Miami. And he had the fewest rushing yards he had all year with only 6 yards. After the game, he stepped to the podium, all confident. He's like, not bad for a running back. Because that was what a lot of critics were saying about Jackson. He's really good with his legs. He just so happens to be a quarterback, but he's not a quarterback. He's a running back playing the quarterback position. And Jackson has just silenced all the naysayers. He's been phenomenal with his arms. He has said that he would rather throw the ball than run the ball himself. And of course, we can't gloss over the fact that Jackson is a really good rusher. He broke Michael Vick's rushing record for a single season by a quarterback, rushing for over 1,200 yards in only 16 games because Jackson didn't need to play Week 17 because the Ravens had locked up the number 1 seed already. Jackson is this generation's Michael Vick and will dominate the league, in my opinion, along with the guy who holds the number 1 spot on this list for the next 10 to 13 years. And if you heard me once, I'll say it again. Barring an injury. Jackson stays healthy. He has many MVPs in his future, maybe a Super Bowl or two. He will be the MVP this season without a doubt. If he's not, something is wrong with the NFL. And the Ravens will be a tough out during the playoffs because that's how good Jackson has been. The reason why I don't have him number one, though, and you'll see why when I explain number one as well, is that I want to see Jackson do it again. Is this going to be a one-year thing, or is this going to be something that he can consistently do? If this is a one-time thing, Jackson is not the number 2 quarterback in the NFL for the next 10, 13 years. He might be this season, but I want to see him continue to perform at this level. Maybe not at this level because these are godly numbers, but I want to see him be able to rush for at least 800, 900 yards consistently, throw for 3,000 yards consistently, multiple touchdowns, and just be a really good starting quarterback for the next 10 to 13 years. But regardless of that, I greatly am excited to see what Jackson has for the future because he's an immense talent. I saw that at Louisville. He won the Heisman, and we've seen it so far in his first full year as a starter in the NFL. All right, at number 1, you've probably guessed it, it's Patrick Mahomes. This is actually what I thought was pretty easy. Mahomes in his first 2 years as a starter has thrown for over 9,000 yards, 76 touchdowns, 17 interceptions while completing 66% of his passes. And he has been arguably the most dominant and electric quarterback in each of the last 2 seasons. And in the last 2 regular seasons, in games Mahomes has played, the Chiefs have a record of 23-8. The only quarterback with as many wins as Mahomes during that stretch is Tom Brady. And Mahomes missed a couple games this past season due to a broken kneecap. Brady hasn't missed a game in the last 2 years, I don't think. So Mahomes, had he played those games, he might have the most wins out of any quarterback in the last 2 years. He won the last year's MVP, and had he not missed those few games, as I mentioned with that kneecap injury, there would have been a serious debate as to who would have won the MVP award, in my opinion, between Mahomes and Jackson, because those two guys are so good. And I hope those two meet in the playoffs because that would be a phenomenal game. They met early on in the regular season, but that was in Kansas City. If they meet in the playoffs, this is going to be at Baltimore with so much more on the line. So I really want to see what would happen. Mahomes is probably going to be the face of the NFL at the quarterback position for the next 10 to 15 years. And I think he has multiple Super Bowls and multiple MVPs in his future. As long as he has a solid team around him, like Tyreek Hill is a great weapon for him because Mahomes can sling it and Hill can run it. They need to get another running back. I think another wide receiver to complement Hill. Mecole Hardman has shown that. Demarcus Robinson has shown that. Travis Kelce is obviously the best tight end in football, in my opinion. But we'll get to that video in a couple weeks. But he is a special talent, and I can't wait to see what Mahomes has in store. So Patrick Mahomes, my number 1 quarterback in the NFL as of right now. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with my list? Leave your rankings in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Stay tuned for the next part of this series. We'll see you soon.